श्रीशैलेशदयापात्रम् धीभक्त्यादिगुणार्णवम् यतीन्द्रप्रवणम् वन्दे रम्यजामातरम् मुनिम् लक्ष्मीनाथसमारम्भाम् नाथयामुनमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्ताम् वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम् यो नित्यम् अच्युतपदाम्बुजयुग्मरुक्मव्यामोहतस्तदितराणि तृणाय मेने अस्मद्गुरोर्भगवतोऽस्य दयैकसिन्धोः रामानुजस्य चरणौ शरणम् प्रपद्ये लोकाचार्याय गुरवे कृष्णपादस्य सूनवे संसारभोगिसन्दष्टजीवजीवातवे नमः।
Asmat Gurubhyo Namaha, Asmat Paramagurubhyo Namaha, Asmat Sarvagurubhyo Namaha. So today we're continuing our discussion of Sri Vacana Bhusanam by Pillai Lokacharya with a commentary by Manavala Munigil. And we are today going to look more into the aspects about caste, which he talks about. Previously we had talked about how it's actually, he considers it a benefit to be born in a low caste or to be born in a low situation, because those persons who are born in a high caste, sometimes they have a little bit of false ego that they have to overcome with regards to service of the Lord or their position in society in respect to other Vaishnavas or to other Prapanas or other Bhagavatas. So let's have a look at the text. Number 32, equality in the Sangha. So he says here, it's essential to see these prapanas. Previously, we had said that it's essential to see these others or other prapanas, other persons who have surrendered to the Lord, as being regarded as equal or indeed superior. So we should see those that we associate with. This is people might be a little bit familiar with this idea. Coming from Gaudiya Vaishnavism, some people may say, well, there's different levels of devotees, and the highest level of devotee, he sees everybody as equal, like that. Here, Pillai Lokacharya is saying this is a basic understanding for Prapana. For a person who is surrendered to the Lord, we shouldn't see the caste or the different material qualifications, gender, Ramanujacharya says here, sexual orientation, ethnicity, different things, of a prapana. These are all material qualifications or disqualifications, but in property there are no material or qualifications or disqualifications. So we shouldn't see those things. We should regard everybody as equal, all prapanas, all devotees of the Lord, or refugees at the feet of the Lord. And he says, indeed, here in this sutra, he says, Sutra 222, he says, indeed, we should see them as superior. So the association, it was talked about the association of other Bhagavatas or other devotees, other prapanas is very helpful to us in spiritual life. So association means not only that you give your association to others, but you accept from them association. You accept from them what they have to offer, like that. So if you don't think that they have anything to offer to you, right, then how can you have a real association? So here he's saying not only we should see all the prapanas as equal, we should try to see them as superior. We should try to see their good qualities. And if they have any undesirable qualities, we can just ignore those. We should try to ignore those. I mean, obviously, if somebody is very fallen materially or morally or whatever it is like that, we should try to give them good association, but not associate with them in that respect. But at the same time, if they're a Bhagavata, if they're a devotee of the Lord like that, we can look and we can try to see their good qualities, and we can try to, or the good knowledge that we can get from them. It's said by Chanakya, who is a great pundit in Indian philosophy. He He said, you can accept a good wife even from a low family. You can accept knowledge even from a child, right? And you can accept gold even from a filthy place, right? Okay, so carrying on, 223. That is to say, considering them equal to the Acharya and superior to worldly persons, to oneself, and even to the Lord. So here again, we have some more hyperbole that in order to emphasize this idea that we should see everybody else as not just equal, but superior to us, as greater properness, as greater, because what does Krishna say in the Bhagavad Gita? He says, everyone follows my path in all respects. So actually everybody's following, the Lord is proposing, and the Lord is disposing, is allowing us to do all these things. He's the one, he's the actor in this world. So everybody follows Krishna's plan to a certain extent. Some people, they don't know so much about it, but everybody is following Krishna's plan. So we can see everybody as superior like that. Here he says, and this is specifically about the Bhagavatas and the Prapanas, the devotees and refugees at the feet of the Lord. We should consider them not only superior to us, we should consider them just like we honor the Guru or the Acharya, our teacher. We have many teachers, right? We should consider them like a teacher. So whatever good they have to offer us in association or knowledge or whatever, we should accept that, just like we're accepting it from a guru or teacher. And obviously superior to worldly people who are not devoted to the Lord or not surrendered to the Lord. Obviously, that's obvious, right? But superior to oneself. And then he says superior even to the Lord. Superior even to the Lord, because these are the people who we are associating with most closely, and we can see them as being spiritual and as being like an acharya, being like a guru, being like a good example for us in our own spiritual life. All those who belong to the Tirukutam, Tiru means Shri, Kutam means like a hut. It means like a family, regardless of caste, ethnicity, gender, sexual orientation, etc., and who have taken refuge in Krishna or Srimad Narayana, should be considered as superior to all other worldly people, to oneself, and even superior to the Lord himself. So obviously, there's a little bit of hyperbole here, because we know that the Supreme Lord is above everyone. But this is a theory that we know, and this is a philosophical doctrine that we follow. But still, our attitude towards other people, especially people who are Bhagavatas or Prapanas, should be like this, that we treat them with great respect. So equality with the Acharya is confirmed by the Acharya's directive. So Ramanuja himself and all the former Acharyas have insisted that by having received the same sacred mantras, all Vaishnavas are equal, right? So in Samashrayanam, everybody receives the Tirumantra, Dvaya Mantra, Charma Sloka, maybe some other mantras from the Acharya, right? These are all sacred mantras, and they all mean the same thing. As we have been going through different, what we call Rahasya Granthas, these mantras are called secrets because they're normally given secretly to the person who takes Samashranam, which is a formality of mantra diksha. And so they're normally secret mantras, although everybody knows what they are. And some of them, even the Charma Sloka of Krishna, of course, is given right there in the Bhagavad Gita. But these mantras contain the essence of Sri Vaishnava philosophy, the essence of the system of property, which is the initial upaya, right? There are some other upayas, of course, talking about other means of reaching liberation or reaching the service of Srimad Narayana, which is our form of liberation. And they are Kama Yoga, Jnana Yoga, and Bhakti Yoga, all spoken about in the scriptures, in the Upanishads and in the Gita. But finally, we come to surrender. And the Charma Sloka, or 1866, verse of the 18th chapter, 66th verse of Bhagavad Gita, gives us this direction to surrender to the Lord. And even in the Puranas, like Varaha Purana, we have Varaha Charma Sloka, we have Ramacharma Sloka in the Valmiki Ramayana. These are all, and including the Astakshara mantra and the Dvaya mantra, all of these mantras are very, very important mantras. Why? Because they give us the essence of property, which is the primary initial method of surrender to God, of the worship of God, of becoming a refugee, seeking refuge at the supreme feet of the Supreme Lord. So ultimately, of course, it's been explained that the primary means of attaining the Lord is the Lord Himself. But this is the initial system. So it's an offense to think otherwise. So that's very normal in the scriptures, that you see something is presented in a positive way. The positive thing which is presented is that other persons should be seen with respect, with great respect, even more respect than we give to the Lord, even more respect than we give to the Acharya, other Vaishnavas. And here it is said it's an offense to think otherwise. So any sort of derogatory or even slightly offensive mentality towards the Bhagavatas is considered very bad, like that. And what we call in Sri Vaishnava parlance, we call it a Bhagavata, not Bhagavat. The word Bhagavat means God. The word Bhagavata means devotee. So Bhagavata, apachara. We say apachara, it means the same thing as aparada. Aparada means offense. Apacharam also means offense. So we normally say Bhagavata apachara. This is considered to be a very great offense. So here, just to back up this point, Pilalokacharya is describing some statements from Itihasas and Puranas. The Itihasas, again, Mahabharata and Ramayana. The Puranas, 18 Mahapuranas, with different verses. So he says, clearly verified in the Itihasas and Puranas in the verses beginning with 1, him whose brightness is ever sung. 2, service to him whose love is unbounded. 3, shed tears till blood streamed from the eyes. 4, hate loving fiends equipped with swords. 5, one who has reached the status rarely gained, and in the excellent verses following. And 6, most precious being. The references are to Tiravai Moli by Namawar, 371-10, 810, 1-10, Pere Tirumoli 774, 1-10. These are all dasikams. These are all groups of 10 verses by Namawar. And 261-10, Peramal Tirumoli 2:1-10, Tirumalai 36-42. Now, this Sri Vacana Bhusanam being a rather advanced work, it is assumed that the readers or the students of this work are familiar with the Nalaya Divya Prabandham, the 4,000 holy songs of the Alwars. So I think probably, so when he just makes these quotes, people are supposed to know those, and they're supposed to understand that these are the pramanas that coming from different scriptures that speak about this point. We could go and we could look at all these different pramanas, but I think that may take quite a while. So maybe we'll just leave that. Maybe if we can come back to that later, I'll look them up, and maybe I can post something about that. In all of these verses of the Prabandham, the emphasis is upon giving due respect to all members of the Vaishnava family. So it's nice that he used the word family here. That we should see Vaishnavas as sisters and brothers, and fellow Vaishnavas, and serving them irrespective of their caste and of incidental social restraints. Okay, so now he gives another example in the next sutra. Vishwamitra, who is the rishi of the Gayatri Mantra, Savitri Gayatri Mantra, a Kshatriya, he started out as a Kshatriya, became a Brahma Rishi. Okay, so he's explaining that there was somebody who was a Kshatriya who became like a Brahmin. He became a Brahma Rishi. So through his spiritual attainment. So the idea is that somebody can change their birth caste or their birth situation, their material birth situation, by their spiritual endeavors. There are a number of examples of individuals who've achieved great spiritual heights, and they were honored as such, in spite of being born in castes other than the Brahmin. So it's not just that Brahmins. Sometimes we go to India and we associate with a lot of Sri Vaishnavas, and a lot of them are Brahmins. A lot of them are born in Brahmin families, and they're very Brahminical. But there are also many Sri Vaishnavas. There are many Prapanas, not only Sri Vaishnavas, but other Vaishnavas also, who are not born in Brahmin families, who are not born in high families. And in fact, there are some, as I believe we saw before, there was a discussion of a sloka from the Bhagavatam which says even if the person is a dog eater, Chandala means a dog eater, or swapacha actually. The word swa means dog, pacha means to cook. So swapacha is directly, literally the word dog eater. But if he's a Vaishnava, then he's considered to be very great. He has overcome that material circumstance in which he was born. So the story of Vishwamitra becoming a Brahma Rishi is a very long story. I probably have told it before, but I don't really want to tell it again here. It's very long. Vishwamitra was a king. Basically, he went with his army and took shelter one time at the ashram of Vishishta, the sage Vishishta. And Vishishta had a Karmadenu, which is a wish-fulfilling cow, which produced all of the bedding and all the food and everything to give to the guests of Vishwamitra and his army, King Vishwamitra and his army. So Vishwamitra thought this was really good, and he asked him to give the cow to him. So he said, no, I can't give you the cow because I need the cow to produce all the things that I need to perform my sacrifices and things that I do. I'm a rishi in the forest, and I need to do those. So then Vishwamitra tried to take the cow by force. He was unable to take the cow by force because when his army tried to take the cow, Vishishta created an army from the cow to counter that army. So everything that Vishwamitra did, Vishishta counteracted with the wish-fulfilling cow. So later on, Vishwamitra decided that he has to become as powerful as Vishishta. So he did many penances and tried to perform many acts, many interesting acts to prove that he was as good as a Brahma Rishi. Now, Brahma Rishi, there's different levels of Rishi. There's a Rishi, a Maharishi, a Raja Rishi, a great Rishi, a kingly Rishi, and then there's a Brahma Rishi. There's so many different levels. So each one has to be awarded by a particular person. Finally, Brahma has to give you the title Brahma Rishi. So he had to attract the attention of Brahma by doing some really great things to get that title of Brahma Rishi. He could never really do it until he actually surrendered to Vishishta and gave up and begged his forgiveness for all of his behavior, bad behavior towards Vishishta. So I think this story is very important for us to understand that this is the way that we can also get benefit from another person, from another Vaishnava, is also to be surrendered to them in the sense of accepting all the good things from them and not glossing over any material problems that they might have, like that. We shouldn't be enamored by their social status or the family they were born in or their gender or caste or any of these things. Okay, so then he goes on and says, Ravana called Vibhishana a disgrace to his tribe. So of course, Vibhishana was the brother of Ravana, the brother of Ravana, and therefore they were asuras. They were living in Sri Lanka, and because Vibhishana left and he saw the writing on the wall, he saw that what his brother did, Ravana, by kidnapping Sita was wrong. So he told him that, and he said, you should give this lady back to her husband, Lord Rama. And he also understood that Lord Rama was going to defeat Ravana, and so he didn't want to be on the losing side. He also felt that it was completely wrong what his brother had done, so he surrendered to Lord Rama. So when he went over to the other side, Ravana naturally said, "Oh, he's a disgrace because he gave up his family and he went to take shelter of Rama, who's our enemy, right?" But of course, Ravana made Rama an enemy by stealing Sita away. Whereas Lord Rama spoke graciously of him, regarding him as one of his own clan, the Ikshvakus, the Ikshvaku dynasty, coming down through Dasaratha to Rama. So he considered him to be part of his family. Now that he surrendered, when Vibhishana surrendered to Rama, he considered him to be part of his family. So that's the other thing. When we surrender to God, we become like part of God's family. Not that we're not part of God's family. Of course, we're all sons and daughters of God. We're all created by the same creator. So in that sense, we're all sisters and brothers. He's the Supreme Father. But some people don't see it like that. Some people are attached to their material lineages, or their material groups. I only associate with people of my country or my social position or of my financial position, and I don't associate with others. Even if they're devotees of the Lord, I don't associate with them like that because I have this materialistic vision. But if I have a pure vision, which is what Bilokacharya is talking about, then I see everybody as equal, and I see everybody as like a sister and brother, all belong to the same clan or the same lineage. Rama addressed Vibhishana, asking him to tell him about the military strength of them, right? Rather than when Rama asked Vibhishana to tell about Ravana's military strength, he used the word them, not including Vibhishana. When Vibhishana surrendered to him, he said to him very clearly, Rama could have said to Vibhishana, what is your army's strength? But he didn't say, what is your army's strength, Vibhishana? Or what is your clan's army's strength, or Vibhishana? He said, what is the military strength of them, not you? Because he immediately considered him to be part of his family, part of his group, after he surrendered. The Rakshasas thus make it clear that he did not consider Vibhishana to be one of them, right? Did not consider Vibhishana to be one of them, of the other Rakshasas. He considered him to be a devotee or a Vaisnava or a Prapana. So Lord Rama graciously performed the Brahma Meda sacrament for Jatayu. Brahma Meda is the Vedic funeral rite performed only for the highest and most respected Brahmins. If somebody is a Brahmin and they've performed the Shravana sacrifices all through their life that they're supposed to do every day, and they perform the 40 samskaras and all these things, then at the time of death, they have a funeral pyre and they do a Brahma Meda to cremate the body. And they also burn all of the wooden sacrificial spoons and items that are used by that person. The Ramayana tells us that Lord Rama lovingly cremated the corpse of Jatayu, the vulture, who fought Ravana in an attempt to rescue Sita during her abduction with these honors. So it's an honor for Rama to do the cremation, to do the funeral ceremonies of a bird, of this vulture. But because the vulture was a devotee, because the vulture was a prapana, surrendered to Lord Rama's feet, right? Lord Rama did this for him. So similarly, when we go to Sri Rangam in the Sri Vaikuntha Ekadasi festival, the Lord comes out, Lord Nam Perumal, the Utsava Murti of Lord Ranganatha, comes out from the Sanctum Sanctorum very early in the morning on his palaki, and people are supposed to follow along as he exits the inner sanctum through the Paramapadavasa, which is the heaven's gate, the gate of Vaikuntha, the Vaikuntha gate, the Vaikuntha door, which is opened only for those 10 days of the second part of the 21-day Vaikuntha Ekadasi festival. So that Vaikuntha Ekadasi festival is all about going to Vaikuntha. So we follow along with the deity. And when we get to a certain place in the Sri Rangam temple, there's a place called the Viraja Mandapa. And in that Viraja Mandapa, it's like a nice stone mandap within the, it's all covered of course with granite ceilings and things like that. But underneath the granite ceiling, there's also another cover and black basalt columns. And when the Lord comes there on his palanquin, being carried by servants like that, the devotees come behind him. And this is the idea that the Lord will take us to Vaikuntha personally. He'll personally take us to Vaikuntha. We'll follow along behind him. And when he gets there, they perform a special puja at that time where the Lord himself performs the funeral rites for all his devotees before they go to Vaikuntha. And that place is called the Viraja Mandapa. Viraja is the name of the river or the demarcation between the material and spiritual worlds. So the demarcation between the spiritual and material worlds is the place where we leave off the last trace of any gross or subtle body that we have, right? What is called Prakrita Sharira, our material body. Normally when the soul leaves the body, it leaves the gross body of earth, water, fire, air, ether, and continues on in the subtle body, mind, intelligence, and ego, continues on in its journey. So that journey for a prapana is called going by the Achiradi Gati or the Achiradi Marga, which translates loosely as the path of light. The path of light going to Sri Vaikuntha. On the journey on the path of light to Sri Vaikuntha, one comes to a certain place where all those the subtle material body also has to be discarded, and only the pure essence, the pure soul itself, Atman, Jivatman, can continue, and it's in its pure, pristine state, enter into Nitya Vibhuti, or the supreme Paramapada, highest place of Sri Vaikuntha. So at that time, the Lord does our funeral ceremonies and all those things for us, right? Just like Lord Rama did for Jatayu, who valiantly, he was no match for Ravana, and he knew it, but still he had to try and save Mother Sita from being abducted by Ravana. And of course, Ravana chopped at him and cut his wings and killed him ultimately. So Lord Rama understood how surrendered Jatayu was and performed his funeral ceremony. There's another story about funeral ceremonies that I want to tell you, and that is Ramanujacharya's guru, Periyanambi, or otherwise known in Sanskrit as Mahapurna, right, had a disciple. He had a disciple. He had other disciples apart from Ramanujan. He had one disciple who was born in a low caste, and that person, that at one time, Periyanambi or Mahapurna, he got some disease in his body. He had some disease in his body, and he was in a lot of pain, and he was experiencing some problems from this material disease. And this disciple of his said, "Swami, I'm going to pray that this disease leaves you, and I can take this disease from you." And somehow or other, this very low-born devotee of Periyanambi, he prayed for this disease to leave his guru and to come to him. So apparently, it actually happened that the story is that he got this disease, and that it left Periyanambi. So Periyanambi was very grateful to this devotee for doing that. Later on, that devotee who was born in a low caste, he died. And after he died, Periyanambi, although Periyanambi is a Brahmin, he did the funeral ceremonies, and he did all the different rites for this devotee. He did all these different rites for this devotee. So now people in Sri Rangam, all the Brahmins around the temple, because Periyanambi lives right there in if you come to Sri Rangam, it's the house is opposite mine. in the east side of the temple, in on the fifth or sixth prakaras in Chitra Street, and people, everybody that lives around there, it's called the Agraharam. The Brahmins live there, so they would say, why you as a Brahmin, you've done this ceremony for this these last rites for this person who's a Sudra, who's not a Brahmin. So that was considered to be a bit of a scandal at the time. And so Parinambi's daughter said, what my father has done is not wrong, because the father, Parinambi, was getting boycotted by the other Brahmins. They were saying, look, you've done this, you've engaged in doing this ceremony for this low-class person. So you're losing your caste by doing this. It's very bad for you to do this. It's not Brahminical for you to do this. So Parinambi's daughter said, look, my father hasn't done anything wrong. This person was a Bhagavata. He is a great devotee of the Lord, a great person who is surrendered to the Lord, refugee and prapana. And therefore, I call upon Lord Ranganatha to give a sign to show that what my father has done is correct. So oftentimes this will happen, is that there might be some dispute between the Vaishnavas about something like that, and then the Lord himself shows some miracle or something like that to give everybody an understanding of what was correct and what's not correct. So she said, if what my father's did is correct, let the chariot of the Lord, which goes in Chitra Street around in April, in Chitrai. The word Chitrai is April. Like Chitra means April in Tamil. So the street is called Chitrai because at that time the Rath Yatra, the Rath cart of the Lord, goes around that street. So she said, if what my father did was correct, let the chariot of the Lord stop here in front of our house, and not be able to go further until people accept this. And so what happened was, in fact, when they did the festival of the Lord, and the Lord came in the chariot did stop in front of his house, where it remains today. That's where they keep it. It's right opposite my house, in between my house and Parinambi's house. Is this what they call the Chitrai Tear? The tear means the Rath cart, the Lord's chariot, right? Wooden chariot sits there, right? And that's where they house it. So it stopped, and Parinambi came out and he offered worship to the Lord and everything like that. And then everybody accepted, yes, what Parinambi has done is right. What Mahapurna has done is right. He honored his low-born disciple just like a Brahmin. He gave him the same respect and same honors, just as if he was a Brahmin, because he was a great devotee. So then the chariot of the Lord again continued on its journey around the temple. So that's another story about this. There are many stories of how great devotees, great Vaishnavas, and especially great acharyas have had dealings with people who were not Brahmins, who were less than, of different castes, of different creeds, of different genders, even of different considered lower perhaps in social status in Brahminical society, and how they've shown the equality of all the different Bhagavatas and Prapanas. So this is just some stories. So carrying on, in Sutta 230, Yudhisthira performed the Brahma Meda sacrament for Vidura. Of course, Vidura was not a Brahmin either. And so Yudhisthira also performed this. So not only Rama did for Jatayu, not only Parinambi did for his Shudra disciple, but also Yudhisthira did this ceremony for Vidura on account of the astral voice. Normally we understand sometimes in the scriptures that a voice is heard in the sky, like at the time of the marriage of Vasudeva and Devaki, predicting Lord Krishna would come and kill Kamsa. So this is called in Sanskrit Akashvani, an Akashvani. I'm not sure what it says here in Sanskrit, but anyway. So an unembodied voice. So some voice in the sky came. Some prediction was made, and because of Vidura's great wisdom. So this has to do with the great wisdom and devotion of Vidura, the reason that why Yudhisthira did the Brahma Meta for him. Since the greatly learned Vidura was born a Shudra, Yudhisthira hesitated to perform Brahman funeral rites for him. A voice in the sky exhorted him to do so. So we can look up this story in Mahabharata, and probably there. Sages waiting at the door of Dharma Vyada had their doubts about Dharma resolved. Okay, so it's interesting. You can read in the Mahabharata, there's a section which could be called the hunter or the butcher's Gita, right? So somebody might think that's a little strange. How can you have a Gita, like a spiritual text, a spiritual song or spiritual text written by a hunter or about a hunter or a butcher? So, because normally hunters and butchers, this is considered a pretty low caste. Normally, I think if you talk to Lakshmi Tadachara, Dr. Alwa's father, and Dr. Alwa, they'll say that Dharma Vyada was not actually a butcher, but he was like a hunter, like that. Whatever he was engaged in killing animals and in sort of trading the meat, and etc. So it's considered to be a very low caste in society. So, but in the Mahabharata, he has some instructions about Dharma, which he gives. Even this low caste person gives some instructions about Dharma. So I believe Rama Ramanujacharya has actually, if people want, I can post this. He's given the Butcher's Gita or the Hunter's Gita from Mahabharata with a translation, which shows you the principles of Dharma or religiosity which the hunter gave to certain people who approached him. Okay, so the story of Dharmavyada is found in Mahabharata. Dharmavyada was a hunter or butcher and thus of low caste, but had attained perfect enlightenment through devoted service to his parents, right? So in the Vedas, we also know that that the parents are considered to be like the first guru, the first teachers. The mother is the first. So it says Matri Devo Bhava, Pitri Devo Bhava, Acharya Devo Bhava, Atiti Devo Bhava. So there are these different statements in the Vedas that the mother is like God, should be treated like God, should be respected like God. The father should be respected like God. The guest should be respected like God, or the Acharya, the guru, should be respected like God. So all of these people deserve respect. So we're talking about here respecting people, regardless of their social position, like this. So here we have this example in Mahabharata of a person who was a hunter or butcher of very low caste, but he's respected, and he had respect himself for his parents, and through the respect he had for his parents as gurus, as teaching him like that, and devotedly serving them, he had some enlightened thoughts, which he preached to different persons who came to ask him about the principles of Dharma. So we can learn, as Chanakya says, we can learn spiritual precepts or principles even from people who are maybe not, surprisingly, may not even be. Sometimes we're just we find people who are not even prapanas or not even devotees, right? But yet they have very strong morals. They have very strong ethics. So we can learn even from people who are not even Vaishnavas, that they have good ethics, they have good morals, they have good behavior, like that. Thus, even the sages were seen to wait patiently at his door to have him clarify abstruse points of Dharma for them. So it may be difficult for some people to understand certain precepts, and he could understand them because he had become enlightened by the service of his parents. So it's an interesting thing. I can post the whole thing for us if anybody wants to read it. Krishna, passing by the houses of Bhishma, Drona, and others, took food in the blessed house of Sri Vidura. And this came up also. We were discussing about whether it's possible for higher caste people to take the food of lower caste people in the Varnashram system, as it is explained in with all the medieval social rules, like from Manu Samhita and different places, Apastamba, different places. So whether it's possible, but we see that practically, although Krishna was born a Kshatriya, grew up with Vaishyas, still he's the Supreme Lord, and was considered very high in society, you know. Ended up being, you know, king in Dwarka, and even socially very, very high. Passed by the houses of Bhishma, who was the grandsire, who was also a great Kshatriya, Drona, who was also a great Kshatriya come Brahmin sort of mixture like that, because he was also like a Brahmin, but he taught military arts, so he was considered a Kshatriya. And others, and took food in the house of Vidura. Again, Vidura was a Shudra, but he was such a great devotee that Lord Krishna took food in him. When Krishna came to Duryodhana's kingdom as an envoy for the Pandavas, elaborate preparations were made for his reception. By ignoring all the other highborn Kshatriyas like Bhishma and the Brahmins like Drona, he went to eat with the learned Shudra, Vidura. So sometimes people will say, well, you're nice devotees, and you're very nice Bhagavatas and nice devotees, but they won't eat in your house. You know, we respect you, but we wouldn't eat with you. You know, sometimes we find some Vaishnavas like this. They won't intermarry with other people. They won't eat with certain other people, even if they're Vaishnavas, because they consider them, oh, it's a different caste, or, you know, there's some material objection, some social objection. So the expression used in Tamil is amudu setan, which means amudu. Amudu means like amrita in Sanskrit, nectar of immortality. So that Lord Krishna considered this food of Viduras, even though he's a low-class person, a Sudra, to be just like nectar. Lord Rama graciously accepted the food from Sri Shabari. Shabari, a low-caste woman, would pick berries every day and taste them, setting aside the sweetest ones for Rama on the event of his arrival. When he finally did arrive, he ate them all with great relish. So even in Jagannath Puri, they have these people called Shabharas, which are like tribals. Shabari was like a low-caste woman. The Shabharas are considered like the original worshippers of Lord Jagannath, and they are the ones that look after him at the time when the Lord catches cold after Jyeshta Abhisheka, when he has the bath, and is supposed to be the renovation of the deity goes on, the repainting of the deity goes on, and there's no darshan up until the Rath Yatra time. So the Shabharas they're considered tribals, pig farmers. They're considered quite low class, but at that time, they look after Lord Jagannath and not the Brahmins, and they consider themselves to be like the family of the Lord. And they'll offer fruits to the Lord, even if they've tasted the fruit, they'll offer the tasted fruit already to the Lord, as you would do if you had a very close friend or a very close family member. They wouldn't really mind if you took a bite out of an apple and offered them the rest of the apple. So we have a similar sort of situation there in Ahobilam. In Ahobilam, you have the tribals called Chenchus, and since there's a story about Lord Narasimha marrying one of the Chenchu ladies, one of the tribal women, and you can go there to Ahobilam today and you can meet those people, and they consider Lord Narasimha to be like their brother-in-law. He said that person who married one of their sisters. So they have some very interesting, depictions it's carved in the Sanskrit mandaps, in the sandstone mandaps or the granite mandaps there. They have the in iconographic form. You'll see Lord Narasimha standing with a bow and arrow, and next to him some lady standing with a bow and arrow, and she's obviously a tribal because she's wearing a short, jagged edged, skinned skirt, and she's standing there, and that's Chenchu Lakshmi. She's the member of the Chenchu tribe, like that. So they consider themselves to be part of the family of the Lord, and so all Prapanas, we consider all Prapanas to be part of the family, the eternal and family of the Lord, and therefore very close to us. We consider them, everybody, to be close family members, all other Vaishnavas. So here we have this next section is about rejecting the differences, all differences. So, yeah, here we're going to get this story that I just told about Maranera Nambi. I didn't mention his name, but his name is Maranera Nambi. But let's talk about that. So let us recall that which was spoken by Ramanuja to Ramanuja by Pere Nambi, his guru or Mahapurna, concerning Maranera Nambi. Maranera Nambi was a low-caste disciple of Alavandar, Yamunacharya, and a man of great learning and devotion. On his deathbed, he asked Pere Nambi, a Brahmin, co-disciple of Yamunacharya, to perform his funeral rites. He reasoned that this vehicle of a body had been regarded with great affection by Yamunacharya, and thus he felt that it should not be handled by his own people meaning his own family members, after he had left it. Peri Nambi did as requested, and some onlookers complained to Ramanuja. Ramanuja summoned Peri Nambi and requested an explanation as to why he did not follow the social convention and allowed Maranera Nambi's body to be cremated by his own people, further suggesting that by flaunting the social convention, he was setting up a bad example and earning public, I don't know what that word is, obloquy. Peri Nambi's rejoinder was based upon the following points. 1, there was no choice in the matter, as he could not deputize someone else to do it for him, just as a daily Sandhya rite, cannot be done by proxy. In other words, he had been given the task by the dying Maranera Nambi, and therefore was under the obligation that which could not be outsourced to someone else. The second point, he said, was he, or Peri Nambi or Mahapurna, was by no means superior to Rama, who had performed the Brahma-Meda sacrament for a vulture, Jatayu, nor was Maranera Nambi in any way inferior to Jatayu, right? Nama was glorification, the third point, of the service of all devotees, irrespective of caste, Tiruvai 3.7 and 10 and 8.10, was not a mere poetic figure of speech, but an injunction that should be realized in practice. So we should actually take these parts of the Nalaya Divya Prabandham which give us the idea of the doctrine that we should respect all Vaishnavas, despite any social misgivings we have because of their social status, right? We should not just take those as a poetic figure of speech, right? As, like I said, as hyperbole, but we should actually take them as a rule, and we should follow that rule. So here he says also, there is through manifestations, this is a quote coming, the God of gods, through various manifestations, assumed the form of gods and humans. His devotees are born in different bodies and castes, and according to their conduct, karma, they, the Lord and the devotees, take forms like all other sentient beings. But this is not a cause for I don't know what that means. On the contrary, both appear as sentient beings for the welfare of all beings, lokasangraha, alone. The so-called eminence of non-devotees, due to learning, wealth, and conduct, is no better than the dressing up of a widow. It is to no avail. So this is an unknown source of this quotation. But it basically says that that there is, let me just look up this word, contumely. insolent or insulting language. Okay, so not a cause for insulting language. So the point is that the Lord does appear in all these different manifestations, and we can understand that everybody is actually, the whole universe is a part of the body of God, so therefore everything within it, including us, has to be respected like that. As God is within us and we're a part of God. He is within us and we're a part of him. And so therefore we have to respect that. The so-called eminence of non-devotees, right? So people may think that non-devotees, or people who are not Bhagavatas or Prapanas, have some great learning or wealth or conduct, or even some great family connections or status in society. But that is really just external. That's all external. Internally, we're all part of God, and he's within us all. It has been said that a Brahmin who has mastered the Vedas in their entirety, devoid of devotion of the Lord, is like a saffron-loaded donkey. Saffron-loaded donkey. The saffron, of course, is very precious. The Vedas, of course, are very precious. The knowledge of the Vedas is considered very great. But a Brahmin scholar, no matter how learned he is in the 6 branches of Vedic knowledge, and there are different branches of Vedic knowledge, means the Vedangas. The Vedangas are Shiksha, Vyakarna, Nirukta, Jyotish. Shiksha, Vyakarna, Nirukta, Chanda, Jyotish, and Kalpa, right? These are the 6 branches of Vedangas, right? So no matter how much you know of all these different Vedic sciences, if he does not have love of God, then he's like a donkey carrying a burden of saffron. And saffron is, of course, very, even more expensive than gold, right? Able to appreciate the weight, but not the fragrance or value. There's somebody who just knows the Vedas. Somebody may know the Vedas, all the Vedas, but they don't understand the Vedas. They don't have the actual essence of the Vedas. What is the essence of the Vedas? The essence of the Vedas is, of course, to surrender to the Lord, to perform property, and to reach the Lord, to reach liberation, which is the eternal service of the Lord in Vaikuntha. And if you don't know the purpose of the Vedas, then it's just, all your Vedic knowledge is just like a burden. It's still very precious, but you don't really appreciate the value of it, right? All you can appreciate is that you memorized a lot of Vedas, or you read a lot of Vedas, but you didn't really understand them. Though a king, the Lord Kulashekara was an Alwar, who was also the king of Chera district in South India, which is maybe equivalent to modern day Kerala, expressed a desire to be born as an animal or even an inanimate object, right? If he could be a devotee. So this is there in the in King Kulashekara's in writings, which are there in Tamil and also in Sanskrit. Mukundamala Stotra is his Sanskrit composition, but in his Tamil Divya Prabandhams, which he's written, King Kulashekara says that even if he were to be an animal born in Sri Rangam, that would be very nice. He would appreciate that. Or even if he were to become the front doorstep of the temple, he says, right? So there are many birds in Sri Rangam, especially in the granite walls in Sri Rangam. There are these little holes, and there are these tiny little green parrots that like to live inside those holes. And the story about the parrots of Sri Rangam is very famous because it has to do with how Tirumangai Alwar actually reclaimed the deity and found the deity and built the temple. But that's another story. We won't go into that today. But so King Kulashekara, he said, if I could be one of these birds, one of these, that would be my ultimate desire, is to be here with Nam Perumal and Periyar Perumal, with Lord Ranganatha, and in Sri Rangam, heaven on earth, Bhuloka Vaikuntha. And also, he said, even if I can be the front doorstep of the temple, if I become the front doorstep of the temple, then all the devotees, when they come to see the Lord, they'll place their feet upon me, like that. And that will be, that's the greatest thing that I can achieve. right? If I become to serve the devotees in that way. Kulashekara's Alwar in his poems expressed an ardent desire to be reborn as a bird or a tree in order to be near Lord Srinivasa in the temple of Tiruvengadam. Yeah, so this is also another point that he wanted to be near Lord Srinivasa also, but also Sri Rangam. There's mention of that. So in different parts in Divya Prabandham. So Periyalwar was, of course, the foster father of Andal. Andal, of course, was born. She was found under. She's the female Alwar, female saint, incarnation of Bhudevi, found coming from the earth, just like Sita, underneath a tulsi bush by her father Periyalwar, who used to grow flowers and tulsi for making garlands to offer to the Lord in a place called Sriveliputur, which is on the edge of the Western Ghats, which is the mountain range that runs from basically from Bombay all the way down to the tip, which divides the Deccan Plateau from Kerala and southern Dakshina Kannada district of Karnataka. So these mountain range. So just from the after the gut section, after the steep section, when coming down to the plains, this place called Sriveliputur, Periyalwar lived there, and he had a garden. He found Andal there. So Periyalwar, the chief of the Brahmins, right, and his blessed daughter Andal transposed themselves as cowherds. Okay, so in the prayers of Periyalwar and also in the famous prayers of Andal, they consider themselves to be, although they're Brahmins, because Periyalwar was a Brahmin, so his family is also Brahmins. Andal's also Brahmin, considered like that, even though she was a foster child. They, in their writings, they talk of themselves as if they were cowherds, right? Andal says as if she's a gopi. In her Tirupalai, 30 stanzas in Tamil, which she considers to be a garland of Tamil verses, which she offers to the Lord Bhattapatrasai in Sriveliputur. So because of their great love for Krishna, right, and Krishna was a cowherd, right, grew up as a cowherd, then Periyalwar and Andal easily and naturally transposed themselves and identified completely with these lowly cowherds in their attitude towards devotional service. So that's nice. So you'll find that amongst the writings of the Alwars and even some of the Acharyas' writings, they'll think of themselves as being socially different from what they are in reality. Their meditation on the Lord is that they will serve him in a certain way. And even some of the male Alwars have had this what we call Nayaki Bhava, or Nayika or Nayaki Bhava, which means that they have their thought, their bhava, their mentality, their feeling is as though they love the Lord like a lady loves her boyfriend, her husband, like that. So they take on a female personification in their thoughts, like that. So I'm not looking at the chat, so let's have a look. Somebody said back. Okay. Yeah. So when rags are removed, all will take on the nature of the best women. Okay. So what does it mean? What does this mean? When rags in the form of afflictive emotions of self-desire, anger, delusion, arrogance, greed, and envy, all these things that are associated with the materialistic mentality, right, are eradicated, then the true nature of the jiva will shine through, and one becomes like the gem of all women, Sri Mahalakshmi herself. So this is just to add on here that because Periyalwar and his daughter Andal were thinking themselves like this, they were thinking of themselves in this way, especially Andal. Periyalwar also, but there are some other Alwars who also have this Nayaki Bhava, thinking of themselves as female, And in, you know, the real point is all of us are actually female. What does it mean to be female? The idea is that the definition of female is not is to be subservient, to be submissive, to be merciful. All these qualities that women have more more naturally than men have, right? This is the actual real quality of the soul. And so that's why he says here that all these other things are like or are like rags, which are hiding the fact that underneath the rags there's a beautiful woman. There's a beautiful woman that's there. So underneath all of our externals, our external material body, our external conditioning, right, which gives us all this materialistic feelings like self-desire, anger, delusion, arrogance, greed, envy. Underneath all these things, which we consider to be like rags, there is a beautiful woman. There is a beautiful soul. There is a beautiful Jivatman who is completely surrendered to God, just as Mahalakshmi or any woman is surrendered to her lover or to her husband. Like that. So we have a small section here with one sutra, similarities between jivas and Lakshmi. So now that we've just mentioned, now that Pillai Lokacharya has just mentioned how all the jivas are basically female. This is a very interesting point, right? In the sense that they're completely subservient. The Shesha Sheshi Bhava. We also understood that there are 9 inherent relationships between the soul and God, and one of them is this Shesha Sheshi Bhava. We are the Shesha. We're completely subordinate and subservient, and he's the Sheshi. We are completely dependent upon him, and he's completely in charge of everything. Okay, so the point is that now that he's brought up the point that the pure soul is just like the greatest gem of all women, Mahalakshmi, right? Then let's talk some more about what are the similarities between jivas and Lakshmi. So there are 6 similarities between purified jivas. Now, again, we're talking about purified jivas here, jivas that have given up. What did he say in the last sutra here? He's saying about selfish desire, anger, delusion, arrogance, greed, and envy. These are considered like rags covering that pure lady. And they are all basically have arisen because of wrong mentality, right? And materialistic mentality. And so that's what's covering us. That illusion is covering us at this point. When we give up that and become purified, then there are 6 similarities between the purified jiva and that one, meaning Lakshmi, in quintessence or essence. These 6 are: 1, having allegiance to no one other than Sriman Narayana. So that is called Ananya Yarta Sheshatvam, right? Being totally his servant. Now, what does it mean to be totally subordinate and serving the Supreme, right? It also means not serving anybody else. It's not that we can serve Sriman Narayana and serve other people as well. No, we are only meant for his service, only for Sriman Narayana's service. That's it, right? So exclusively serving Sriman Narayana. 2, taking refuge in no other. Right, so this is the point. Serving him and not serving others. Ananya Sharanagatvam, right? When Sri Vaishnavas are always saying that one of the singular most important issues in Sri Vaishnavism is we resort to the lotus feet of Sriman Narayana and nobody else. Nobody else. So we see Sri Vaishnavas don't worship Ganesh. They don't worship any of these other devatas. Right? They don't go to they don't take shelter of any of these other devatas for any reason, right? Only Sriman Narayana for everything. That's right. So allegiance to no other than Sriman Narayana. Number 2, refuge to no other, right? That's also called Anya Devata Nasti, Nasti means you should not do or don't do, right? Anya devata means other gods. Don't worship other gods, right? Or other, in a sense, not just gods, but anybody of any position we should not be taking refuge in for any reason, right? Being enjoyed by no other. Being enjoyed by no other. Ananya bhogatvam. We'll see all these ananyas here. Ananya means no one else but, right? Enjoyed by no other. Tranquil, number 4, tranquil in union with the Lord. Some shlesha atil, ari, ari yirukai. This is the Tamil, right? Tranquil in union with the Lord. We should be satisfied with that. That being enjoyed by no other. Distressed in separation. Distressed in separation means that there are 2 types of property. Well, there's different types of property, but there are 2 main types of property. There's a dripta property and the artha property. The dripta property means there's a person who feels so separated from the Lord, feels so distressed by separation from the Lord because they're in this material body that they want the Lord to take them right now to Vaikuntha, and they give up their body thinking of the Lord in that way, right? So somebody who does property surrenders to the Lord and wants immediately to go to Sri Vaikuntham and doesn't want to stay around in this material world at all. That is a person who is most distressed. It's called dripta property. And another person who artha property who is willing to wait. He's willing to wait until the natural fall of this body to attain the lotus feet of the Lord in Sri Vaikuntha. So distressed by separation. But in any case, every day when we wake up, we think, oh, we wasted another day yesterday doing so many things which were not connected exactly or directly to our service to the Supreme Lord. And therefore we regret that. And we feel distressed that we haven't actually attained pure service to the Lord in this life, in this body, in this, but ultimately we also have great faith, Mahavishvasha, that's also stated, that at the end of this life, we will attain Sri Vaikuntham and his eternal service. Being controlled solely by the Lord, being controlled solely by the Lord. It seems like that's included, but it's given here as a separate point here, being controlled completely by the Lord. So these are 6 things which the jiva, the purified jiva, the pure jiva, has got 6 qualities that we have in common with Mahalakshmi, like that. Between the Vadagalais and Tengalais, between the Deshika Sampradaya, we call it, and Tenacharya Sampradaya, or northern and southern schools of Sri Vaishnavism, there's a little bit of a slight distinction, very slight distinction between the idea of what is the difference and similarities between Lakshmi and the Jivas are. In the Deshika Sampradaya, they consider Lakshmi to be just like another god, just equal to Sriman Narayana and able to create universes, able to give moksha and all these sort of things. As well as having all these qualities. They do not consider her to be in the same category or status or tattva as the Jivatmans. The Tenacharya Sampradaya, the southern school, or Tengalais, Sri Vaishnavas, they considered her to be similar to the Jivatmans, that she cannot create universes and she personally cannot give liberation, but she is a mediatrix. Both sects believe that she is a Purushakara or mediatrix, female mediator between the soul and God. She is somewhere in between, mediating on behalf of us. She is our eternal mother. She is his eternal consort. So in that way, she comes in between and mediates the problems that we have with the Lord, that we feel that we can't approach him because we've committed so many sins and we're afraid of the Father's punishment. And the Father thinks maybe I should punish these souls because they haven't followed the scriptures, they haven't followed my commands, they have done so many sins, so shouldn't I actually punish them? But Mahalakshmi is there as the mediator in between. And in all forms of Vaishnavism we find this. We find Radha, Sita, all these different avatars of Mahalakshmi in between, as working as a mediator between the souls and God. Okay, so enough about that. Egocentric impulse. Okay, so superiority here in this world derives from egocentric impulse. Superiority hereafter derives in being liberated from the egocentric impulse. Well, that's pretty straightforward. Worldly success is based upon competition and egocentric desire for achievement and recognition in the eyes of others. Most people like the lives that they think will bring them acceptance from others. Vishwamitra's ego, remember Vishwamitra Rishi, who wanted to get the Kamadena from Vishishta, drove him in a personal struggle which led to a change of social status and universal recognition as a Brahma Rishi, right? After he went through his struggles, he eventually attained the status of a Brahma Rishi. Kulashekara Alwar, or King Kulashekara, on the other hand, rejected all such social status and worldly achievements, and would have been happy to have exchanged places with flora and fauna. He would have become a bird or a stone or a plant or a tree like that, but only in a spiritual place like Sri Rangam or Tirupati. So Brahma experienced failure, whereas a milkmaid achieved success. So this is an interesting sutra. Although Brahma arises from the lotus sprung from Vishnu's navel, right? This is talking about the scriptural understanding or story about creation, where the Lord is lying down within this universe, Garbhadakshay Vishnu, and from his navel sprouts a lotus. And on that lotus is the first created being, or the first living being, or Brahma, or Chaturmukha Brahma. And Brahma was a failure. Why was he experienced failure? Because he climbed, first of all, he climbed down the stem of the lotus, but he could not find the end of it. So it was something like an unlimited lotus. So he eventually went back to the top of the lotus and sat down and meditated. So he was unable, because of his ego, to see the lotus feet of the Lord. Okay, so there's so many stories in the Puranas about this episode. On the other hand, Chintayanti, okay, a simple gopi, unable to go out to meet Krishna, immediately abandons her body and attains him. So there was a discussion before in Sutra number 80 about a gopi, the story about a gopi called Chintayanti, right? Chintayanti actually means that she was thinking about God all the time. Chinta means to think. So maybe it's not her actual name, but that's how she's called here, Chintayanti. She was a gopi and she wanted to go out to see Krishna, but somehow or other she had all these social obligations. Perhaps she was married, or perhaps her father wouldn't let her go out. She was kept in the house, and because of that, she had so much love. The difference between Brahma and her is that she had so much love for Krishna that she actually passed away and died. She left her body because she couldn't go out of the house to meet Krishna. She couldn't go out to meet Krishna. So this is a story. So, program for spiritual development. Here we have a very long sutra here. Okay, so let's read it. One should keep oneself under constant surveillance, considering oneself as the ground in which solipsism produces desire for sense gratification, which is the cause of ruin in every way. One should avoid, like a snake, worldly people or samsaris, who are promoters of self-centeredness and sense gratification. One should treat Sri Vaishnavas, who are concerned with renouncing these sense pleasures and self-centeredness, as kinsmen. One should treat the deity with all awe and reverence due to a father. The acharya should be relished, like the starving person relishes food. The disciple should be treated like the beloved. Realizing that conceit, wealth, and sensuality, these three are the causes of respectively disrespect towards the virtuous, attachment for bad company, and a passion for those who are indifferent. One should take care to renounce them, right? So even in the Gita, it says lust, anger, and greed are three gateways to hell, right? One must realize that the spiritual qualities, sama means equanimity, control of the mind, and dharma, control of one's reactions. Samo dhamma tapaso cham from Bhagavad Gita, 18th chapter, are essential qualities of Brahminical or spiritual type people, right? Cannot occur spontaneously or be inculcated by others, but can only arise from divine grace, which is mediated by the grace of the true acharya. So as we were discussing before, in previous sessions, we discussed how control of the mind leads to control of the senses, and control of the mind. Both of us lead to the acharya. The acharya then gives us the Tira mantra, right? And the Tira mantra then gives us the Lord, and the Lord is the ultimate upaya, the ultimate method of reaching the service of the Lord, which is moksha, the ultimate service of the Lord. So one must realize that the spiritual qualities, sama, control of the mind, and dharma, control of one's reactions, cannot occur spontaneously or be inculcated by others, but can only arise from the divine grace, which is mediated by the grace of the true acharya. So it's actually the grace of the Lord, but it comes through the acharya. One should, by the acharya's grace, continue making progress in overcoming the lower nature and developing the spiritual nature. One should renounce the desire to enjoy sense objects and cultivate the clear perception that the maintenance of the body is accomplished by using the remnants of things offered to the Lord, such as prasadam or whatever the Lord graces us with. One should welcome suffering and affliction. We can say, just like Queen Kunti did that, whether arising from karma or a result of grace. So actually the Prapana is thinking that any affliction that I have is, we can, in one sense, we can think of it as our karma, any suffering, any material suffering that occurs in our lives. We can also consider it to be the grace of the Lord. Why is he giving me these karmas? Like as Queen Kunti said, well, let these troubles happen to me again and again, because by these troubles I remember you, O Lord. One should repudiate the idea that this code of conduct is meant for attaining the Lord. Okay, so while doing all these things to get the grace of the Lord through the acharya, we shouldn't think that we're doing them as a means of attaining the Lord. We're not doing these things as a means of attaining the Lord. One should repudiate the idea that conduct is a means for attaining the Lord. One should cultivate the desire for knowledge and emulation of distinguished persons and intense love of God. So cultivate the desire for knowledge, of not just ordinary knowledge, of course, spiritual knowledge, and emulate distinguished persons. Mahajano yena katasapanta, follow the Mahajanas, the great acharyas and the alwars in their actions and their lives. And cultivate intense love for God. It's difficult to cultivate love for God, but there are through the association with other Vaishnavas and through the performance of devotional activities, we can do that. One should offer prayers and benedictions towards the Lord. What does the Lord say in Bhagavad Gita? Manmana bhava maddak bhakto, think of me. Majjaji means worship me. Yajya means sacrifice. Majjaji mam namaskuru, offer your obeisances to me. Namaskuru. Mami vaishasti satyamte, pati janeti, ultimately you will come to me. So he says that twice, that verse is said in Bhagavad Gita. One should offer prayers of benediction towards the Lord. Okay, so and if you can't think of any prayers yourself to pray, there are plenty of other prayers which have been offered, and which are perfect prayers, which have been offered by the great alwars and acharyas. And so the recitation of the prayers of great people, right, is something which Vaishnavas also do. And you can also pray in your own words, in your own language. Anybody can pray. You don't have to be a big scholar. You don't have to have a good memory to remember Mukundamala Stotram or all these different 4,000 hymns of the Alwars, or or any of the Vishnu Sahasranama, the 1,000 names of Vishnu, all these different prayers that are recommended or that are chanted by many, many Vaishnavas. So we don't have to remember all these things, but it's an advantage if we do know some of these things. We can use them because these are all like in Sanyavandana. We say the prayer that Draupadi did when she surrendered to the Lord when she was being stripped naked in the assembly. Shankha Chakra Gadapani Dwarakalina Achita Govinda Pundari Kaksha Rakshamam Sharanagatam. O Lord, Govinda who lives in Dwarka, I surrender unto you, completely surrender unto you. I'm surrendered unto you. And Krishna saved her like that. So it's good to offer prayers of benediction towards the Lord. Even Periyalwar in his famous Tirupalanda, which is the first thing that everybody learns in Nalaya Divyanam, he said, Palanda, Palanda, Palai, Ratanda, Palkoti, Nuraina, Malanda, Tintol, Manivanna. So he said, Palanda, Palanda. He blessed the Lord to live thousands of years. Now, the Lord, of course, is eternal and is not going to die at any time, but he felt that mood of blessing on the Lord. So he gave that. So it says here, offer prayers of benediction towards the Lord. So there are many prayers that we can offer, praising the Lord, praising his eternal qualities, his unlimited Ananta Kalyana Gunas, his unlimited auspicious qualities, right? The Lord is called Nirguna. He has no inauspicious qualities. He has no bad qualities. He has all auspicious qualities. So we can praise him through his qualities, praise him because of his leelas and actions, which are all divine. Praise him by understanding and chanting the glories of him mentioned in the scriptures, right? Janma karma chame divyam, Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita. One who knows my birth and activities doesn't have to take birth again in this material world. And his sacred abodes. We can also visit those sacred abodes. We can chant about those sacred abodes. The places where the leelas of the Lord have taken place in this material world, or even the 108 Divyadeshams, holy places, which are spoken about by the deities of those temples are spoken about in the 4,000 holy hymns of the Alwars. And cultivate aversion to worldly objects. So that's also something that has to be done. Cultivate aversion to worldly objects. That's very easy to do, actually, in a sense, because if we associate with other Vaishnavas and if we perform devotional activities, we fill our life up with things which are spiritual. There's no room for things which are worldly or material. One should remain disciplined in matters of service, abiding by the well-disposed and avoiding the ill-disposed. So we have to also see, although the natural inclination is to see everybody as being equal and everybody as being greater, but we should really mostly see that the Prapanas, the Vaishnavas are like this. And we should also try to avoid the worldly people or the people who are ill-disposed to the service of the Lord, like that. So, in this sutra, our mentor proposes a program of spiritual development, thus stabilizing the potential hazardous path of destructive passivity inherent in Tengalai theology. Okay, so as we all know, we have the cat and monkey analogies of the Vadagalai and Tengalai paths. So the Vadagalais are, of course, in their idea of property is cooperative grace, where the Jivatman has to perform many efforts to cooperate with the Lord and thus be saved ultimately by invoke the grace of the Lord by doing works. So not just faith, but also works. Whereas the Tengalai philosophy tends to be very passive in a sense, because we are like a kitten. We are waiting for the mother cat to just pick us up and save us, like that. So here, what he's saying is that although this is the general understanding that everybody has about the Vadagalais and Tengalais, still within the Tengalai Sampradaya, it's not that we simply think that we shouldn't do anything at all, right? One, mindfulness. The Prapana, or the refugee at the feet of the Lord, should constantly be watching the mind and thoughts that arise. The desire for sense gratification, which arises from self-centeredness, should be gradually eradicated. So mindfulness, this is also in Buddhism very one of the first principles is mindfulness. We should be thinking about our situation. We should always thinking about the consequences of our thoughts, words, and deeds, actions. Association. We are greatly influenced by our peers, and therefore the company that we keep should be that which will benefit us and should be a support network for our spiritual practice. Of course, the deity, number 3, the deity should be treated with awe and reverence. The majority of people are incapable of raga bhakti. Okay, so we've heard about this in Gaudiya Vaishnavism. There's a big emphasis, or there should be an emphasis in Orthodox Gaudiya Vaishnavism. There's a very great emphasis on raga bhakti. And the problem with raga bhakti is that spontaneous and passionate love for God is not possible for many, many people. There are many people who just don't have that spontaneous, or at least in the beginning, nobody has this spontaneous or passionate love of God. Therefore, they should cultivate Vaidhi bhakti, an attitude of awe and reverence. And this is obvious from, if you see the Gaudiyas had many problems because they in the Sampradaya, they try to tell everybody to perform raga bhakti when those people who are not qualified for that try to perform that type of bhakti and they're not qualified for it. So a few are qualified for it and they perform it. But then you have mass movements like the Gaudiya Math and ISKCON who try to teach a lot of people. When they try to teach a lot of people, they find that the vast majority of people don't have that spontaneous and passionate love of God. And they need to cultivate, first of all, an attitude of awe and reverence and following rules and regulations of the scriptures. Number 4, the spiritual preceptor should always be cherished and never taken for granted. This is part of it's going to be seen also. Peter Lokacharya explains this also in his Artha Panchagam, where he describes one of the methods of property. One of the methods of attaining moksha is acharya abhimana, or acharya property, where somebody just simply has complete faith in the acharya and doesn't really know anything else but just is surrendered to the acharya. Of course, you need a proper acharya, a great acharya, to do that. Number 5 is the spiritual, but acharya bhakti is also considered very important amongst the Alwars. The example of acharya bhakti is Madhura Kavi Alwar, who only wrote, his only poems were not, all the other Alwars spoke about God and praised God. And Madhura Kavi Alwar, he only wrote a Tamil Prabandha called Kananun Siratambu. Kananun Siratambu is his prayers to his guru, Nam Alwar, who was the head of the Alwar. So he really didn't pray to God. He only prayed to his guru, and that's the example of Acharya Bhakti. There are some other examples, very famous examples of Acharya Bhakti in Vaishnavism. Normally, the Acharya Bhakti and the Bhakti to the Lord go hand in hand together, and they're like parallel twin tracks. So we shouldn't think of them being one or the other, but we normally dedicate ourselves to both these things, dedicated to the Lord, but also dedicated to the Acharya. A disciple should be treated with all affection and attention, and one should shower upon shower upon a great love of one's life. So the acharyas or the gurus, they usually treat their shishyas, they usually treat their people who are their teaching, or the people who are their disciples, they usually treat them with a lot of love and affection, like family members, like sons and daughters, somebody who's in their same family. Conceit. Number 6, conceit, the pursuit of wealth as an end in itself, and sensuality should be avoided. Of course, you can't avoid sensuality. You can't avoid some sort of pursuit of wealth in this world, right? These are what we call purusharthas. So purusha means human being or man, and artha means gain. So these are goals of human beings. Human beings have these goals. Artha is one of them. Kama is one of them. So sensuality is one of them. Artha is one of them. Gain, economic gain is one of them. Dharma is also one of them, which is righteousness, right? Or we could say ethical or moral behavior. And but ultimately, all these things are meant for moksha. The ultimate aim is moksha. The ultimate aim is moksha. And what is moksha? Moksha is this eternal service to the Supreme Lord in Vaikuntha. So, as an end in themselves, the pursuit of wealth and the pursuit of sensuality should be avoided. But we cannot avoid sensuality and pursuit of wealth in this material world as long as we have material body. We're not going to avoid that. But they're not an end in themselves, right? Dharma, artha, kama, artha, dhamma, moksha. These are all meant ultimately for moksha. Await the opportunity by the preceptor's grace and guidance to develop mental equanimity and self-control. Okay, so naturally, this is one of the things that the acharya, the guru, or the different shiksha gurus, or whoever we go to, even our people who we associate with, our other Vaishnavas, and we can learn these things even from people who are not Vaishnavas. We can learn mental equanimity and self-control. There are some people who have got great moral and great ethical standards. Maybe they're not even Vaishnavas. We can learn from them. We can learn from them these things like that. So it's not that they have to only be Vaishnavas. With the grace of the preceptor, one should strive to overcome the 6 afflictive emotions and develop positive qualities: acceptance, loving kindness, friendliness, compassion. The body should be maintained by offering everything first to the Lord and then taken as the leftovers prasad. So whatever you do, what is Krishna saying by Gita? Yat karosi yadasnasi, yat jahosi dadasi, yat tapasisi kaunteya, tat kurushva madarpanam. That you should do as an offering to madarpanam, as an offering, arpanam, to me, madarpanam. Yat karosi, whatever you do. Yat jahosi, whatever you offer. Yat jahosi dadasi, or give. Whatever you take or give or take, right? Yat jahosi dadasi. Yat tapasisi, whatever austerities you do. Don't just do austerities for materialistic reasons. Sometimes people, they study very hard, but they want their MBA so they can make a lot of money and enjoy life. They don't have any idea of serving God. But if you perform an austerity, even the austerity of knowledge, the austerity of wealth, the austerity of works, there are many austerities. It should have some noble reason. It shouldn't be simply some materialistic reason. Develop a positive attitude towards suffering. Again, in Buddhism, we also have a lot of emphasis on trying to get rid of suffering. Because suffering is the root cause of all our problems in this material world. Why do we suffer? Is because of ignorance, because we think that we're this body. Actually, we have nothing to do with suffering. We're the eternal soul. And the soul should be totally blissful and totally knowledgeable, but it isn't right now, okay, in this material world. There are 2 recommended ways to regard suffering as which are endemic to the human condition. Suffering is inescapable because it is the fruition of previous karma and is in fact due and condign recompense for past offenses. So yeah, we can see it like that. We can see our suffering as just, it's our karma that we've, from previous lives or previous actions in this life. It is therefore good that one's liabilities are being liquidated and debts being repaid, thus bringing one closer to the Lord each time. So we can see it like that. The more I suffer, the closer I get to God, because ultimately my suffering will end, and once when it ends, then I will attain liberation. The other way to see suffering is due to the grace of the Lord, and we've discussed this before a little bit. Suffering is due to the grace of the Lord and being administered in order to foster distaste or vairagya, right? Distaste or detachment. Vairagya means detachment from from continued embodiment, possessions, relationships, and world in general. Now, this word vairagya, or he says distaste here, or detachment, I would say, right, doesn't mean aversion. It doesn't mean aversion. So when attachment and aversion are two sides of one coin, of the same coin. So we may be very attached to material sense gratification. We also can be averse to material sense gratification. We may be very attached to, just like I was saying here, this economic development and sensuality are there in life, right? So vairagya doesn't mean that false vairagya means the person gives something up, but actually the taste for that remains. But the Bhagavad Gita also says that by enjoying it, by experiencing a higher taste, that's the real dispassion and distaste or neglect of these other things just occurs automatically like that. So like, for instance, if somebody's starving and you give them a choice of stale bread or some other food, some other beautiful fresh food, if given a choice, nobody's going to eat the stale bread, right? They're just indifferent towards it. They don't hate the stale bread. If you're starving, you'll eat stale bread. Okay, anybody will eat something stale if they're starving. But once you're not starving anymore, right? Once you understand, once you're satisfied, then you take a position of the thing which is more desirable, like that. So a natural neglect occurs. A natural neglect or dispassion occurs. It's not that you hate the stale bread. You don't hate the stale bread, but you're relishing the fresh food. You're relishing the fresh feast, like that. So that's the whole point. The next point here. So we talked about those 2 points before. This spiritual development program should not be regarded as a means to win the favor of the Lord, but should be performed as one's duty only. Okay, so it's not that we do these things because we think by doing these things we will attain the favor of the Lord. Unlike in the Bodhigalai system, they're performing these efforts like that, and they're feeling that by doing these efforts, somehow or other, we are engaging in cooperative grace, that the grace of the Lord will only come by doing that. That's the difference between people who are followers of faith and works, and people who are believers in faith alone, but who still do works. People who are followers of faith alone, but who still do works, right? So we have some people who believe that the works are important and you won't get the grace without the works. But the other people also believe works are important as a duty. They're a duty because why? The Lord gives the Shastras. In the Shastras, there are certain rules. We should follow those rules. And because they're the orders of God, and also to give example to other people. But even if we don't follow those rules, or even if we don't, if somehow or other we make some mistake or whatever it is, like that, either knowingly or unknowingly, right? Still, that is not the cause of the Lord's grace on us. That's not the cause of the Lord's grace on us. So we should never think that we're trying to do those things to win His grace. Strive to increase your learning by every means possible. Ramanuja also, in his last commandments, when he was dying, he mentioned to his disciples, he said, you should learn and you should preach the Sribhashya, like that. But many people, they don't know Sanskrit, they don't know Vedanta, maybe they're not capable of studying Sribhashya in depth, like that. So there are many, many other things that Ramanuja said. And similarly, in the chapter 12, Bhakti Yoga of Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna says, if you can do this, if you can't do this, do this, do this, do this. There are many, many other things that you can do. So, yes, we can strive to learn more about the system of Sri Vaishnavism and property and surrender to the Lord. But ultimately, we do it according to our capacity. Follow the lead of the distinguished and venerable spiritual aspirants. Okay, so we can see the examples of others, and where they have achieved greatness, we can follow them like that. We can try to follow them when they've made mistakes. We can take note of those mistakes too, and we can try to avoid those pitfalls. Work on developing intense love for God. This is all very well to say this, but how to do that? How do we do that? And so it was mentioned above that for many people it's very difficult. This raga bhakti or intense love for God type of bhakti is very difficult. So simply by what do we say in English? Practice makes perfect. So we try to simply practice the rules and regulations of Vaidhi Bhakti, and ultimately love may arise or love may not arise in this lifetime of God, but we should always expect, we should always have mahavishwas, great faith that he will save us. So then bless the Lord in his sacred temples, rather than requesting him to serve you and assist you in the fulfillment of your happiness projects. Okay, that's an interesting way of putting things like that. That was mentioned above, that we can pray. We can pray, we can use the prayers of the other great acharyas by praying and chanting those prayers, or we can pray in our own words, in our own language, with our own thoughts and with our own realizations. Reflect upon the futility of material objects. Normally, this is done in the morning when people wake up in the morning. Initially we think that we've spent our whole life uselessly and fruitlessly, and therefore we'll try to do better today. Be mindful and disciplined in all those matters relating to one's service to God. Okay, so we should, with everything that we're doing, is a service to God. We're living our life as a service to God, like that. So we should be mindful in all those things, not only in ordinary things, in specific ritualistic, spiritual things like offering prayers or doing our different daily duties, spiritual duties, but in all things we should be mindful. Again, live and mix with people that are amicable to you and will benefit you, which is, of course, the Prapanas, the Bhagavatas, the devotees, the Vaishnavas. Avoid the company of those who are the opposite. The opposite is also true. Avoid the company of those who are inimical and will not promote your spiritual development. So, we have another section here called Benediction of the Lord, Mangala Shasanam. So I think today we can stop here, and perhaps if anybody's got any questions, we'll just leave it there. We'll pick it up. We can pick it up next time from Sutra 244, which is the beginning of this section on benediction, on Mangala Shasanam. Mangala Shasanam in Sanskrit means benediction. It comes usually at the end of a portion of a section or a ritual. The end of a ritual or the end of a section, usually they have a thing called Mangala Shasanam, which is the ending prayers like that. So this is a good place to stop today. And about any of these sections that we covered today, if there's any questions or any comments, we can just maybe quickly go over those.
Yeah, thank you, Swami. It was a nice reading. Yeah, it's a beautiful book.
Yeah, I'm glad we're getting back on track here, and I think we really understood, about the whole caste thing, and we it's very clear the way we have to think about other people, especially other Bhagavatas, other Vaishnavas, and the whole idea is to cultivate humility and to be very mindful. I think that's the whole point.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, I was happy to be there again.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
I missed it also.
Yeah. Last week I was very caught up in my work and so many things, It's but now I made some time. It was nice. I'm happy that I was there. Thank you.
Okay, so we'll take it up again next week. We
Next week. Yeah.
I
8
believe
o'clock.
I believe
Yeah.
that we started doing Stotra Ratna with Dr. Tirunarayan. It's going to take us a little while to work into that because we're only doing the introduction right now.
Right.
I also
Okay.
want to maybe find a time to go through Mumukshapati a little quicker with some people who want to do that, and because Dr. Alwa's classes are also lagging a bit because he's also once a week, and we have so many sutras to go through and it takes a long time. So to get more up to speed on that, I was thinking some more, and also we have decided on Sundays at 7. I think Sundays at 7 p.m. European time. I think we're going to start doing chanting Vishnu Sahasranam. So
Okay.
Govindachari and Dear Nitai from Germany, they want to do that. So we'll try that, and
Okay, that's
we'll
nice.
see.
Yeah. All right. Yeah.
So we're going to do that antiphonally. So there's some other things happening, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah. Okay.
If you can see on my I don't think I put it up, but I do have Vedic chanting classes on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and it's not just Vedic, but it's also classical Sanskrit, and we were discussing Mukunda Mala Stotram, Bhaja Govindam, certain prayers, because today we're talking about praying,
Yeah.
and a lot of times people say they know that they should pray, they don't know what to pray for, so. Normally we find when Christians say let's pray, they're normally praying for something like that. Whereas when Vaishnavas pray, we're not normally praying for something material, but there might be some praise that we give in our prayers. And the best way to learn how to pray is to follow the prayers of the previous acharyas and the previous
Sure.
alwars and things. So learn a few things like that. Learn a few prayers that they've used, which always is useful for us to follow.
Yeah.
Their footsteps.
Yeah. Okay, namaskar.
Namaskaram.
Namaskaram.
Yep.